Welcome to Pulling Chain, the blockchain distributed ledger cryptocurrency news channel for the capital markets industry. I'm Steve Edge. Well, last week we started the show with Axoni, so this week we thought we should start with R3. Well, if you haven't heard of R3, it's like Axoni offering blockchain development services, but they go one step further and have a platform called Corda. It's a blockchain type developed for the rigors of the financial services industry. The platform includes smart contracts like Ethereum, where parties can include the legal documentation such as an ISDA agreement to accompany the trade. The Corda blockchain is immutable, like all blockchains, but blockchains aren't immutable in a court of law, and we touched on that in episode 1 if you want to take a look. The documentation feature circumvents that, though. The Corda platform also offers time-stamping of trades, which allows accurate transaction histories. All the participants on the Corda chain will each have a golden copy of transactions, so there will be no need for reconciliation and duplicating reported exposures. Of course, not all participants can see transactions not relevant to them, so there is an element of anonymity. In sum, it seems to me that Corda is an OTC exchange platform that provides finality of positions in its ledger, like a DTCC or other CSD, where legal enforceability is provided in the trade contracts on which you build apps. Well, R3 just announced that they will make their code open source, so what does that mean? Well, it's the same thing as what Apple and Android did to create apps on their platform. Give away the code and let the industry develop meaningful tools with Android or Mac providing the backbone and taking a fee. It's a great strategy if they can convince people to develop Corda chain apps. The potential is huge in such places as bond trading or new offerings, swaps as Barclays has recently demonstrated, and trade finance as we'll mention later on in this video show. R3 recently published its white paper for the technologically illiterate, that includes me. I recommend reading it, and I've put the link to the white paper below, so we'll be watching R3 closely. Well, trade finance is a little bit outside the scope of this channel, but I wanted to mention the cotton trade affected by Wells Fargo and Commonwealth Bank recently. Cotton is, of course, a commodity after all, and last week we talked a bit about oil and blockchain, so now we have a real-life example of a commodity traded cross-border. The trade was only $35,000 US, but it's exactly these kinds of transactions occurring successfully that add confidence to the technology. Well, I don't know the specifics of the contract, but smart contracts again were employed, and I'm guessing it included bills of lading and the escrow feature where payments were released when the cargo reached a certain destination. Interestingly though, no central commodity exchange was involved in the transaction as it was an OTC type trade. Maybe central stock exchange will be a thing of the past or devolve to indication of interest platforms only printing trades with lower cost peer-to-peer trading taking root. But not to worry, brokers, you'll always have a job calling around and making deals, though I'm not so sure about payments using SWIFT. More on that later. So SBI Holdings, they're a Japanese financial services firm. They announced that they were founding a new company called SBI Virtual Currencies. This comes on the heels of SBI Ripple Asia, which is a company focused on cross-border payments on the Ripple blockchain. SBI invested $55 million into Ripple, which provide global financial settlement solutions. SBI also owns, among other things, SBI Japan Next, a proprietary trading system, or ECN for those of you more familiar with that term. Where I can only speculate if they will add a blockchain to Japan Next, SBI has invested in Bitflyer, a Bitcoin exchange. It appears that they have a plan to settle trades with digital currencies and make payments with Ripple, another salvo against SWIFT. Also, the Japanese government is apparently looking at dropping its 8% sales tax on Bitcoin purchases. I'm not sure if this applies to other digital currencies, but it's clear that Japan is testing blockchain seriously. Well, now speaking of payments, CoinDesk published an article entitled "SWIFT Fights to Stay Relevant in a Blockchain World." Well, as you know, SWIFT is a global cross-border payments provider charging fees for sending payment instructions. Now, with the advent of blockchain, that middleman model is being challenged. We mentioned Ripple earlier, and this digital startup could potentially unseat the venerable incumbent. As mentioned, they are in the cross-border digital payment space, and among its senior executives is Marcus Treacher. He was on the board of SWIFT for 6 years and now the global head for strategic accounts at Ripple. Some of Ripple's investors are SBI, as we mentioned earlier, CME Group, Standard Chartered and Santander, of which these last two are SWIFT users too. In response to the challenges of blockchain, SWIFT launched a global payments initiative pilot, which seeks to increase transparency and reduce payment times. The article goes on to say that SWIFT is supporting startups as it embraces global payments over a blockchain. They even sponsored an event to use blockchain for bond transactions. It's still early days, of course, and though I hate to use the word disruptive, the whole financial vertical does appear to be building a better mousetrap. And finally, I wanted to give a mention to CryptoCompare.com. If you're starting out your journey in the blockchain crypto industry, this is a great site to find a lot of information on many of the players. I use it regularly in my research. You can find out about most of the digital currencies that are out there in the market and their listing companies, miners, wallets, news, and even historical data. This will be a mandatory site in your blockchain business bonnet. Well, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe, leave some comments below, or send me an email. You can find me on LinkedIn, and that link is below as well. Of course, if you want to donate some Bitcoin or Ethereum to keep our channel alive, those addresses are below too. So enjoy the rest of your week. For Pulling Chain, I'm Steve Edge.